Section 230, the 26 words that built the internet, and the 5 words that every politician now seems to hate. It's been blamed for online disinformation, digital censorship, extremism, and algorithmic exploitation. But beneath all the rhetoric, one question remains unanswered. What does Section 230 actually do? To unpack the most misunderstood law in tech policy, we spoke to Professor Jess Miers, a First Amendment and Internet law scholar at the University of Akron School of Law. Before teaching, she worked on policy teams at both Google and Twitter, companies at the heart of this debate.
Section 230, the short version is it allows websites and users to not be liable for third-party content. So websites and users are not liable for third-party content. A good illustration, since we were talking about Twitter/X, I guess, if I were to post something defamatory about you, Will, on the internet, you could come after me because I'm the original poster of that content. But importantly, Section 230 is going to preclude you from going after Twitter or the online service of which I posted it to.
The logic is simple. Without this protection, platforms like YouTube, Reddit, or even Wikipedia would face endless lawsuits, not for what they say, but for what we say on them.
And that's important because you could imagine if a service like Twitter could be liable for anything that its users publish, Twitter and many of the online services we use today are not going to be super keen to host online speech. And as you know, as you've probably experienced, some of your listeners have experienced using these online services, user-generated content, third-party content is the lifeblood of these services.
So why are lawmakers from both parties trying to kill it? It's not that they agree the law is broken. It's that they disagree on what kind of internet they want.
So usually what you see, folks on the right, so lawmakers on the right, typically want to see the companies stop moderating content or do less content moderation. They feel like these companies are removing too much of their speech, and they're doing it in a way that's potentially biased against the Republicans or sort of right-leaning content. And so they're like, we need to remove Section 230 because we want to see more of our speech. You then have the left. The Democrats are typically coming from the perspective of you are not removing enough speech. And so this would be things like, if you remember in the COVID era, we saw a lot of folks on the left sort of pressuring these internet companies over the fact that they were allowing COVID misinformation and disinformation to spread. And so you saw folks from the left who were saying, look, we need to repeal Section 230 because we need more content moderation.
One law, 2 competing grievances. To some, it's a censorship machine. To others, it's a disinformation engine. And somehow, both sides are talking about the same statute. Here's the part that rarely gets said out loud. Section 230 doesn't require platforms to be neutral. In fact, it gives them the freedom not to be.
That's X's First Amendment prerogative. They get to make that decision. And then Section 230 just gives them that extra guarantee that if they do decide to remove content on the left or liberal themed content, that they're not going to be dragged into court into a lengthy First Amendment battle over that removal decision.
That means a platform can lean left or lean right. It can allow racist speech or remove it entirely. It can host conspiracies or deplatform them. All of that is legal, not because Section 230 compels it, but because the First Amendment permits it.
Keep in mind that Section 230 is just procedural. It doesn't offer any extra rights. That's all of this is still protected under the First Amendment. Section 230 just gets you to that First Amendment result faster, which is good for these, especially these smaller companies who don't have the kind of money and legal resources to fight these constitutional battles.
Without it, every blog, startup, and community forum would need a legal team just to survive. And most wouldn't. There have been dozens of proposals to amend the law. Most go nowhere, not because there's no appetite for change, but because the demands are irreconcilable.
We saw a lot of proposals. At one point, I was keeping this Google sheet that was public, it was available to anybody who wanted to access it, of all of the different proposals coming through to amend or repeal Section 230. And it was a lot. I want to say we got up to 20 to 30 different proposals at one point in time, probably more. And those two interests are completely conflicting with each other. And so even though we see so many of these different proposals come through Congress, they don't end up getting anywhere because it's so hard to get bipartisan agreement about what to do about the internet.
In the end, Section 230 doesn't tell platforms what they must do. It tells the courts what users can't sue them for. And that's what makes it so divisive and so durable. It protects speech by tolerating disagreement, even dysfunction.
I've been saying for a while, I think the middle ground is going to be this sort of repeal of Section 230, where both sides are like, look, we don't know what we want the internet to look like, but we know we don't like Section 230 for insert all of these reasons. Let's just get rid of Section 230. But I think it's really hard to go further than that because it would require, keep in mind that like Section 230 is just procedural. It doesn't offer any extra rights. That's all of this is still protected under the First Amendment. Section 230 just gets you to that First Amendment result faster, which is good for these, especially these smaller companies who don't have the kind of money and legal resources to fight these constitutional battles, like some of your bigger companies. But what you're effectively asking is, are we ever going to, as a society and as a country, reach a middle ground on what we want to see with the internet? And I just don't think ever, especially today where you've got things so polarized in either direction. I don't think there will ever be an agreement on what we think the internet should be. And personally, I don't think we should ever get there either.
Maybe the problem isn't the law. Maybe it's the mirror it holds up to us and to everything we've come to expect from the internet.